America is a special game, a unique game, played nowhere else on earth. It is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
Let's go in there like a bunch of crazy dogs.
That's right. Let's go in there like a bunch of crazed dogs. Okay, as you can imagine, after you guys saw me paying homage to John Madden last week, I'm paying yet another homage, unfortunately, to another fallen coach, another great coach. Not as iconic as John Madden, but a pretty good coach. And sometimes a pretty bad coach. We'll go through Dan Reeves. And I'm trying to use the word iconic less. I noticed in some of my videos I say it like 7 times, so I'm trying to work on, I should get out my mental thesaurus, and say iconic a little less. But Dan Reeves was kind of the quintessential coach of the Denver Broncos. He and Mike Shanahan are the defining coaches, I think, of the Denver Broncos. Dan Reeves was the coach that kind of helped make us great, but never achieve the ultimate greatness. He, as a player and coach, Dan Reeves, participated in 9 Super Bowls and only was on the winning end of 2 of them. He had 4 losses as a coach. 3 of those losses came while he was in the late 80s with my beloved Denver Broncos. Another one was to the beloved Denver Broncos in the 98-99 season when he was coaching the Atlanta Falcons, and we beat them 34-19. But let's talk a little bit more about Dan Reeves and the evolution of his coaching career here at Denver, and just talk about Dan Reeves in general. Dan Reeves was a Dallas Cowboy running back, where he, as a player, lost 1 Super Bowl and won 1 Super Bowl. And then later on became the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator, where I believe he lost 2 Super Bowls and won 1, which was also against Denver, Super Bowl 12, when the Cowboys beat the Broncos. Dan Reeves was the offensive coordinator for that bunch. And then a few years later, he was our head coach. Some funny things that I remember about Dan Reeves. One is that when he started coaching here in Denver, he was 38 years old. Our starting quarterback, Craig Morton, was 39 or 40. I know he was older, and they made a big deal of that. Because even today, if you are coaching under 40, that's kind of a greenhorn in NFL terms. That's a little early for a lot of people's, how shall I say it, appetite, especially an NFL owner's appetite, who frankly, the team that they own is just an investment to them. They don't care. I mean, they want a winning product, but they want a winning product because a winning product makes money. So when Pat Bowlen took over the Broncos in that, I believe, the same year, 1980, he pretty much cleaned house and brought Dan Reeves in. Young blood from a successful organization, and apparently Dan Reeves must have interviewed well, because he got the job. And like I said, came in. Oh, and also another Dallas Cowboy connection. Craig Morton was the quarterback in the Super Bowl that they lost. I don't know if he was in the Super Bowl they won. Super Bowl 5, a fairly famous Super Bowl where the Colts beat the Cowboys on a last-second field goal. Back when kickers used to kick straight. Now none of them do. I long for a straight kicker that just kicks it. Well, they used to call it soccer style, but that's the way to kick because it gives you more power and, frankly, more accuracy than the old school straight-on kick style. But Craig Morton they were teammates, and then 10 years later, or less than 10 years later, he's coaching his old quarterback. So it was an interesting move. First few years were rough. They were pre-Elway years. Even a few of those first couple of years with Elway were tough. So Elway became the Denver Broncos quarterback in 1983. Dan Reeves did some good things, like getting Wade Phillips as defensive coordinator, made our defense one of the best defenses in the 80s and even into the 90s. But sometimes personnel-wise, Dan Reeves did not complement Elway the way he could have and should have. For example, getting better receivers around him, better pass blocking offensive linemen. Although, to be fair, they did protect him well enough to get to 3 Super Bowls in the late 80s. Unfortunately, they got to those Super Bowls and failed miserably. I remember them very well. The first one, and all of those, by the way, for those of you that don't know, all 3 of those AFC championships that we won to go to those Super Bowls where we got slaughtered, we all 3 times beat the Cleveland Browns. So you're welcome, Cleveland, from saving you from the embarrassments that we were handed on those Sundays in January in 1987, 88, and 1990. You're welcome, Cleveland. I remember them so well. I remember the Giants Super Bowl 21. We were up 10-9 in that one, and they just came roaring back. And Phil Simms had an MVP half. Frankly, it's what he's rested his entire career on. I think he won one other Super Bowl, maybe, but the Giants. I mean, that team just destroyed us in the second half, and Phil Simms got pretty much made his Hall of Fame career in that second half of that game. Next year, we played the Redskins, Washington Redskins, now the Washington Football Team, and we were ahead 10-7, 10-0 actually in the first quarter, and then Washington came back and scored 35 points in the second quarter. Every time they touched the ball, they scored a touchdown. It was horrific to watch. On the bright side, Doug Williams, the starting quarterback, was the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, so that was something. If you got to lose, I guess that's a cool way to lose. And then 2 years later, they lost heavily. The worst loss still to this date in Super Bowl history, 55-10 to the San Francisco 49ers, who were an absolute juggernaut. I think they were favored by 20 points in that game, and they covered the spread. They more than doubly covered the spread. It was rough. That was a rough game. The Simpsons actually do an homage to that Super Bowl in a sense when they talk about. There's a scene where they showed John Elway. I think it's Homer Simpson imagining he's John Elway. I can't remember. John Elway dives into the Super Bowl, into the end zone and scores, and you think it's the winning touchdown. You look up and it's like 40-7, something like that. The self-destructions in those Super Bowls were obviously not only memorable, but imbued something on our society when the Simpsons reference it. Of course, Matt Groening lived in Boulder, and so probably was very familiar with the Denver Broncos back when he was a fledgling animator in the 80s. What a great way to enhance your art by mocking the Broncos of the late 80s. And they were a lot of fun to watch. I got to go to a bunch of games in 1985. Dan Reeves was coaching. Elway was hitting his stride. And I got to see some amazing games. The snowball game versus San Francisco. You may remember that. We won that game by somebody throwing a snowball right at the feet of the field goal kicker, Ray Wershing, as he was about to either tie or put San Francisco into the lead at the end of the first half. And they missed the field goal, and Denver ended up winning that game by 1 or 2 points, which they wouldn't have won if it weren't for that field goal being screwed up. It was funny. The next day on the radio, a bunch of guys were claiming they threw the snowball. It was so funny. It was back in 1985. We had radio and TV. The internet wasn't around, and it was just it was an insane place. But I was at that game. I was at the San Diego game where they blocked a field goal and ran it back for a touchdown in overtime. I was at a game versus the Dolphins. It was really good, but we lost. 1985 was a fun year to watch football in Mile High Stadium. I was lucky to be a part of several of those games. And also 1985, a little asterisk for the Denver Broncos. They're the first team to go 11-5 and not make the playoffs. The Patriots did it back in, I think, 2008 or something like that, but only 2 teams have done it. So, talking a little bit too much about the Broncos and not so much about Dan Reeves. But Reeves did have, like I say, I wouldn't say stellar, but a very lengthy career in the NFL. Player, assistant coach, head coach. Unfortunately, he did die yesterday at age 77. They say complications from dementia, which sounds horrific. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It just sounds like a terrible way to die. I will say this: we don't know a lot about dementia. Do we know if it's genetic? Do we know if it just happens? Is it just a part of aging for some people? We don't know. I will say this: my plan to defeat dementia, or at least ease its effects on me, is I do plan on reading more. I think it's big to keep your brain active, to keep your body active, and not necessarily that Dan Reeves wasn't doing those things. I don't know, but I do believe there are things you can do to keep yourself healthy and hopefully not die that way. I hope it was peaceful. I hope it wasn't horrific for him, because it just sounds like something that would be terrible. But I do have a couple small memories of him. And on a personal sense, I had seen he was a customer at 2 places I worked. One was Yarbrough Drugs, which I've talked about in one of my past videos. It was a Hallmark store, essentially. It was a big retail store, and he came in. We had a gift department. We had some jewelry, and he was looking for something. And I didn't talk to him. It was just, it's Dan Reeves. Because that's back, like I said, back in the late 80s. I was working there in 87, I think, 86 and 87. And I was like, that's a superstar in the Denver scene. And then I saw him again at the Tivoli one time, probably a couple times. We had all kinds of Broncos come through there, including him when I worked there in the late 80s as well. So I had a couple Dan Reeves sightings, never interacted with the man, but I think he's part of what brought Denver to greatness in the last 40 years. Definitely the change of ownership and change of coaching. And I think he set a pretty decent standard for the Broncos. He had a decent winning record, but he also had a lot of losses. When you look at his overall record, he tied the record for losses by the end of his career. He had 165. He had over 200 wins, so he was one more than he lost, but most of that came in Denver, and then after Atlanta and other places, it didn't go so well. So yeah, it's not an easy life being a head football coach. I sure enjoyed the Broncos when Dan Reeves was here. It was the most fun I ever had watching a football team, even when they were better in the 90s. It's just fun to watch those Elway-led Broncos, and Elway had to carry that team on his back so often. Like I said, Dan Reeves made some good choices and some bad choices as a head coach, especially personnel-wise, but we had a competitive product that was fun to watch on the field throughout the 80s. All right, thanks, you guys. I'll get back to you with another one, and I'll just keep this going. We'll just keep opinions going because I got a lot up here. Talk to you guys next time. Thanks for checking it out. Bye.